Alright, hi Starsky, this is Leah again. I'm doing my running analysis video, and this girl in the video is not me, but she's definitely wearing my shoes. Those are mine. Her name's Maddie. She's my little sister in high school. She's pretty athletic. She plays soccer. She used to be a cross-country runner in middle school. But I have found a couple gait deviations in how she runs. We'll get to that later, but I'm going to talk about her form to begin with. So let me press play here, and we're going to talk about her foot angle at initial contact first. Okay, so what I found is she actually has a little bit of a difference in her foot angles between feet. So if you look at her left, I'd say about 5 degrees, but if you look at her right, I'd say she's got a little bit more. Maybe 8 to 10 degrees in her right, depending on the step that she takes. So yeah, there's definitely a difference there. And she's definitely a rear foot striker. Hits the ground at her heel. But her center of mass, or her initial contact in regards to her center of mass, is actually pretty good. It's not too far out in front of her. See if I can get it where she's... We'll do it on the left because that's closest to the camera. And boom. Yeah, so if we look at it right here, she's not that far off from her center of mass. So that's pretty good. Not a lot of braking force going on there. And since we did pretty much hit initial contact right here, I'm going to talk about her knee angle at impact. So it's not completely straight, but as you can see, there is a little bit of a bend. I'd say she's probably got about 10 degrees of knee flexion in this shot. That's pretty consistent. Let's see if I can catch up to her to be more at her side, which I do. If we get there, all right, let's see if we can get another one. And boom. Yeah, so not straight, but there's definitely some knee flexion there. If we look at her loading response, she does bend a little bit more at that knee, so absorbing that shock so that it's not completely straight, which is good. And if we look at her ankles with loading response, I don't really think there's an end to first rocker, or a distinct end to first rocker to beginning of second rocker. I'm pretty sure they just blend in. Just give me a weird look. They're pretty simultaneous. Yeah, she gets a little bit of that slight plantar flexion, but she doesn't go into plantar flexion per se. And just like that dorsiflexion just keeps increasing during that loading response, which would go with the kinematic. Let me see if I can find it in my book. Yeah, so if we look at this right here, lots of plantar flexion, especially in that loading response phase. And she, I think, maybe not the same curve right there, but I would say pretty close. All right, and then cadence. I couldn't really do cadence because she did stuff like that a lot during the video, so that was just Maddie. But I do want to talk about, actually, if you look at her hair, she's got some decent oscillation going on up and down. So I think that's something to note. Even she has a lot of vertical displacement. All right, so now we're getting to our deviation section, and I want you to focus right now as I try to get her view from more of a frontal plane, but posterior view. Look at those knees. So she's got pretty bad medial collapse of, I would say, both knees, and I think it's worse on the right side than it is on the left side, and I'll get to that in a moment, but pause it for a second. So definitely has that medial collapse, which I think is due to she's got some weak hip abductors. Number one, that's a pretty common thing in our family. We've all had them. As sisters, I had it, my other sister had it. So I think something that would help with that is she definitely would need to strengthen those with maybe some clamp exercises, or she could be training with some more plyometric kind of things, with like jump training or like step down trainings onto single leg stances, and really focus on trying to control that medial translation of that knee and trying to keep her knee directly over her toes when she lands. And then the last thing I want you to focus on is look at this foot right here. Okay, so her right foot really crosses over, like almost onto the other side of that midline, if you're looking at it, right there. So the left one stays pretty much on the same side, but that right one really crosses over. So I think something that would be beneficial for her is, obviously that would be a cue I would try to get her to focus on, is, hey, let's try not to have your right foot cross over when you're running. But I think something that could also help with this, if we got her into a clinic and onto a treadmill that had some type of like line in the middle and told her to focus on keeping her feet on both sides of that line. And then that's pretty much all I have for you. Maddie's coming around. I told her to kind of run at me so we could get that view from anterior part, or from the front. And you could still see those knees are just knocking the whole time. And she's looking at me thinking, wow, you're kind of weird, but whatever. All right, so that's my video. That's my sister. And I'm done.